Well, let's take it back to the beginning, shall we? Mass defect is a thing. It's a stuff that you gotta have. As long as you have mass defect in your equation, some form of omega, some form of anti-gravity, dark energy, and field theory, well, then you'll have the inevitable end of the universe. But let's get into hydrogen and helium about why. Helium sinks to the core. Hydrogen exposes itself to the outer shell of the star. That's what gravity does. In a natural homogenized SU or U1 process, it's just hot plasmic gas in a state before she starts forming into something, which would be U2 or SU1, depending on how you like to be orientated to that. Computer science is a little different. I'm not about to break trend about how Richard does the math when he says AI, some her or somebody else is going to come out. Now, she's generally playing it, and she's also playing hydrogen in the Trump side of the coin, but she's that kind of scientist. She's more Neil deGrasse Tyson, but a little nastier. And I mean that in a positive way about the scientific bullshit. Neil's still in the game real hard about working around the area. This is a communication post, and, it's better than grinding math, and, you're getting some pins and stuff. That's how that universe most likely is going to go through phases, not necessarily end. But in here, we have all these materials on the periodic table, and they basically equate to 10 billion years worth of nuclear fuel. It's because it's celestial and earthly bound. As long as those two calculations exist, it gives you a homogenized state of the universe with differences in terms. It's not hydrogen, it's not helium, it's not a star, it's not a planet. It's something between that, which is going to pose some level of mass defect. It had to come from somewhere. It had to do something. So basically, what am I trying to beat around the bush at here for CERN? You should be generally concerned, because there's no way a scientist at the top end doesn't see that material to have to say, well, I'm going to use AI to cut the process. We have already built it. We're going to use it to develop a new thing. And that means the old scientists and engineers that had done the blueprints on this issue, or blue book, won't necessarily be necessary, because the catalyst under Gresham's law was the mass defect. You created something, you couldn't do it by yourself, you needed team, it starts to be erosive, helium slips to the core in terms of the anti-electron collisions and turning into a giant green rage monster before I pull Banner off to the side and tell him, hey, let's see, you want to play this out, doctor, while I work on you about that angry green rage monster thing and anti-electron collisions. That would be generally the model to say, you won. Let's start back over at Genesis and begin this process from me and you working on it to agree with the points, so that way at least we have a defined model of what mass defect would be, to give us a timeline of the far grim future of 40K to determine exactly when the silver, oil, or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is supposed to be what it's at because of the rates in which we're coming, or the notation of noting them in a piezophotoelectric way that causes the end of those functions. Now, at rapid and great cost to the people at large, anybody out there that's not aware of that, and the black body problem in terms of the population in the United States or anywhere else in the world, is going to bring us back around to 2.5 kids at the rate in which we burn through silver, oil, and produce carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Inevitably, it will be inevitable. You have to understand this, because it'll give you a better idea of what the gate should look like. We're not going to be able to pass everybody into Disney all at once without a ticket sale. Yes, when that process comes through, there's going to be a pressure behind that and the entropy of the system, which is going to change the pressure. That change in pressure is going to cause some kind of aspect of entropy in this universe that wasn't exactly homogenized between zero, because existing in one is a difference. And all that sums out to mean that basically, by the standpoint, 30-year fusions are basically done. You have to know how to do the pitch in Visual Studios for what this is, to make Hubble worth something, to make Parker worth something. And beyond that, the notation of a 22-hour signal going to Voyager is worth something in that standpoint. But if you cannot bring that up to the standpoint of this, and even if you did, there's still the idea of, now that it's done, what needs to be done, and inevitably its own end. We had mined the material, we had used those things, we had burnt the nuclear fuel in terms of celestial bound, and at this point in time, when you speed up the clock, Lucy, inevitably the end is the end. But of course, CERN would drop before the farm. It's pretty straightforward. We need corn. not necessarily subatomic particles, titanium nitrate to sprinkle on the farm and then plow off and mine out by the end of the year. Inevitably, it's the end. Inevitably, not necessarily in 24, far grim future, the grim 40K, knowing that the minerals in the map and that it is a ball in a field, basically solar winds outside of here, will give you some insight. But this is insight that we've already known. This is insight we've known since like the 70s, if not the 40s. 1942, I think, is roughly the wars and Einstein's work. 49, 42. Anyways. And there, that's the inevitable end. There will be some new thistle material. Some turn's going to come out with a machine. These are known points that have to happen with no exact point in time, like running out of oil, like carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That doesn't necessarily need to be a human consistence if Yellowstone goes off, if the permafrost in the Arctic Circle melts and all that methane is released. These would be the endpoints, not necessarily to the end of matter as we know it, but the matter of humans on that area of operation for a time. And that's still theoretical in the form of means. If only the three means that maybe I was a little early, maybe I'm right on time, and maybe I'm a little late, with any difference of omega in any of those sets. I'm early, but I was right to be early. I'm on time, but it doesn't matter. I'm late, and again, it's the idea that says I had to hold long because of some omega calculation inside of there. That would be the end of the conversation.